The #2 leader of Al-Qaida has confronted President-elect Obama with a new audio-video message. It's the first salvo from the group's propaganda operation since the election. And it comes just days after Obama told 60 Minutes that one of his major focuses would be capturing or killing Osama bin Laden. In our fourth story on the countdown, the nightly question about the Obama transition: what do we do now? And now, with Al-Qaida back in the headlines again. The dispatch is titled "The Departure of Bush and Arrival of Obama." In it, Ayman al-Zawahiri uses the racial epithet House Negro to imply that Obama, Condoleezza Rice, and Colin Powell do the bidding of whites, and that Obama's, quote, the direct opposite of honorable black Americans, citing Malcolm X, a polarizing civil rights figure in the 1960s. The message was posted on militant websites and appears to be aimed chiefly at persuading Muslims and Arabs that U.S. policy will not change under Obama's leadership. Visually, the tape contains an image of Obama praying at the Western Wall in Jerusalem. One corresponding passage, quote, "You have chosen to stand in the ranks of the enemies of Muslims and pray the prayer of the Jews, although you claim that your mother is Christian, in order to climb the rungs of leadership in America." On Iraq policy, al-Zawahiri warns that, quote, "a heavy legacy of failure and crimes awaits, and that what you have announced before, that you will withdraw troops and send them to Afghanistan, is a policy that is doomed to failure." Let's bring in MSNBC terrorism analyst and a man who served as director of the National Security Council staff, Roger Cressy. And Roger, good evening.
Good evening, David.
Roger, not that they ever went away, but they're back and making headlines. First, what do you make of the latest Al-Qaida tape, and what should we do now?
Well, it reflects the problem that Al-Qaida has, and they have a huge problem. The United States decisively elected a man named Barack Hussein Obama. So that undercuts a key element of Al-Qaeda's narrative, which is the United States is at war with Islam. And so in the battle of hearts and minds, the war of ideas, that type of president goes counter to what Al-Qaeda has been arguing for some time now. So in order to try and get ahead of that, they're coming out with both barrels blasting, saying, in effect, don't believe the hype. President-elect Obama is going to be more of the same on Afghanistan, on Iraq, the images regarding Israel. This is a real challenge for Al-Qaeda because the president-elect is so popular in the international community and in the Islamic world. They're in a real difficult situation right now.
President-elect Obama has publicly made bin Laden a priority. What will he do differently in the effort to capture or kill bin Laden?
Well, you have to look at it in two ways. One is the short-term tactical requirement, which is how do we deal with the safe haven in Pakistan and where bin Laden probably is. You may continue to see military operations like we've seen over the past couple of months. The question is, can the president-elect engage the Pakistani government differently? Second part of it is the strategic issue. In this war of ideas, how does the United States position itself differently from the past 7 years to argue to the Islamic world that the United States is not at war with them and that there is going to be a new policy in place? And I think that's where the president-elect has the greatest opportunity.
You mentioned that the election of Barack Obama, with all of the racial barriers and sectarian barriers that have fallen, that it essentially perhaps takes the wind out of Al-Qaeda's sails. Does it perhaps even threaten Al-Qaeda's existence to a certain extent?
I wouldn't go that far. I think Al-Qaeda will continue to remodel itself regardless of the international environment. But it undercuts so much of their basic argument. And there's a large portion of the Islamic world that looks to this election and says, you know what? The United States is not what Al-Qaeda says it is. It really is a different place. So the hope and the potential that the president-elect comes into office with is a tremendous opportunity to counter the Al-Qaeda message and also to speak to a large portion of the Islamic world and say the United States is different. In fact, we can do things the right way.
As far as the idea that maybe Al-Qaeda is out of sync with the rest of the world, to the contrary, does it possibly demonstrate that they're in touch at least enough to have the tape subtitled in English and making references to 1960s African-American divisive figures?
Well, what you've seen here is the influence of Adam Gaddan, who is the American-born Al-Qaeda leader. He is now influencing Ayman al-Zawahiri and other members, but Gaddan is so twisted in his view of the United States that for the intended audience, I don't think this is going to resonate with them. What I do worry about, David, though, is until Al-Qaeda conducts another attack, they're viewed as feckless around the world. So I worry that whatever operational capability they still have, that's the way they become relevant again, and that is going to be a real pressing challenge for the new president.
Roger Cressy, MSNBC terrorism analyst. Roger, thanks as always for your time. We appreciate it.
Okay, David, thank you.